everyone. The lesson I'm going to teach today is active and passive voice in page 29 from grade 11 English textbook. The objective of this lesson is to study the use of the active voice and the passive voice. First, let's answer the question, what is active voice? In the active sentence, the subject is the person or thing that does the action. Study the example to understand the active voice more. The next question is, what is passive voice? The passive voice is used when the subject is affected by the action of the verb. Study the example to understand the passive voice more. When changing from active voice to passive voice, the object of an active sentence becomes the subject of a passive sentence. Study the example to understand this clearly. When changing from active voice to passive voice, the subject in an active sentence becomes the agent in a passive sentence. The agent is written with by in the passive sentence. Study the example to understand what I said above clearly. When the subjects of the active sentences are pronouns such as I, we, he, she, they, there is no need to rewrite them with by in the passive sentences. Study the example to understand what I said clearly. When the subjects of the active sentences are non-definitive words such as people, someone, somebody, there is no need to rewrite them with by in the passive sentences. Study the example to understand what I said clearly. Simple present form in active sentences changes to am is plus past participle form in passive sentences. Study the example to see what I said clearly. Present continuous form in active sentences changes to am is plus be plus past participle form in passive sentences. Study the example to understand what I said clearly. Present perfect form in active sentences changes to has, have plus, been plus past participle form in passive sentences. Study the example to understand what I said clearly. Simple past form in active sentences changes to was, were plus past participle form in passive sentences. Study the example to understand what I said clearly. Past continuous form in active sentences changes to was, were plus be plus past participle form in passive sentences. Study the example to understand what I said clearly. Past perfect form in active sentences changes to had plus been plus past participle form in passive sentences. Study the example to understand what I said clearly. Future form were plus verb infinitive in active sentences changes to were plus be plus past participle form in passive sentences. Study the example to understand what I said clearly. Future form am is are plus going to plus buff infinitive in active sentences changes to am is are plus going to plus be plus past participle form in passive sentences. Study the example to understand what I said clearly. Now, I am going to ask you the question. Change each active sentence into passive sentence to see how much you understand the lesson. To answer the question, you need to do the following exercise. Study how active sentences are changed into passive sentences in exercise. Study how active sentences are changed into passive sentences in exercise. Study how active sentences are changed into passive sentences in exercise. Study how active sentences are changed into passive sentences in exercise. Where is the time to say goodbye to you all? Goodbye. See you at the next lesson.